Hello, see you again, and here we are with an interview with Professor Dr. Lückmann, and he is the responsible person for the MAC course, the former MMH course, and for the master course in German, or German master course Denkmalpflege, and of course for the new architecture course in Vietnam. So, hello there, and I'm happy to have you here on my side to have a hopefully nice interview.
Yeah, thank you for doing it. Then let's start.
Okay, first question. In 1987, you completed your doctorate at the RWTH Aachen University. What important events happened in the intervening years after this?
Yeah, very important events. I think you mean the employments which were at that time.
Yes.
After finish my degree, I was working at Cologne Cathedral for a couple of years, and during the time I did the PhD. So I was on one side doing my PhD, on the other side I was working. By this I had no university experience as an assistant, nothing like that, because directly after my diploma I began to work as an architect. After that I had a very important employment in Württemberg, was again for the Catholic Church. That was for the buildings which were from the called Bodensees lake in the south to Bad Mergentheim, so a very huge area, and there we had several interesting renovations, and we built a lot of kindergarten. At that time kindergarten were very fashion. I think we built around about 40 kindergarten during that time. So that was what I did before the university.
And how did you come to the University of Applied Science?
Yeah, that's a long story, which make short. The story at last has to do with my PhD, because my professor who gave me advice told me there is a person in one of the villages where I make the examinations who knows something about the people and who can give me contacts. And so I went there and I met Professor Strehl. Professor Strehl lived in such a small village, and he was a former rector of the University of Applied Science of Aachen. And after the reunion, he was asked to come to Dessau to build up here a new university in the shadow of the Bauhaus, because the government liked to have a university where the Bauhaus was again. That was the reason for the foundation of Anhalt University. And Professor Strehl asked me just if I'm interested to build a new university. This was something I never ever did before. I thought that sounds interesting, I should do it. And I was right, it was interesting. So I was in the beginning very soon dean and then speaker of the department. So I had the chance to give a little bit the first ideas for the development of this campus. It was surely an interesting time. Also where I learned a lot about university, what I didn't know earlier.
You have been appointed professor in the Department of Architecture, Facility Management and Geoinformation in the field of building construction and monument preservation. What are your tasks?
What are the tasks? In the beginning you mentioned the courses already, which are my responsibility. Mostly it's like that I have the coordination of these courses. There's the elder course, which I'm still responsible, is Monumental Heritage with the University Halle-Wittenberg. This is a course for German students, a master course where students from different directions can go in, and we teach them monumental preservation. This is one course, around about 40 students. The other course is MEC. This is a course also for monumental preservation with the international students. There we have around about 150 students, and this surely takes most of the time. And the third one is that we started a program in Vietnam, and in Vietnam it's like that there is a German Vietnamese university which like to have the faculty of architecture, and we are just guiding them to have a bachelor program there, which is very similar to that of Anhalt University, and we have now around about 15 students now, second year another 15 in Vienna who are studying their architecture far away from us, but under our guidance. That are the main tasks. And of course what I miss, I'm also teaching still. You can't believe, but I'm still teaching.
What are your goals?
The goals for the education. It's a little bit private. If I think about goals, surely one important thing what came here to this university was the internationalization. We have a very international campus, and this is one of the things which was very important for me. And we now have students from, I think, more than 50 countries here in the course already, but also India, which was also founded before. For me, we have also a lot of foreign students. So this internationalization is one of the very important points. For the education, I would think it's still most important for me to bring the ideas of Humboldt in the education. The idol of Humboldt is something what is in the German universities and is something what makes us special. That means that our teaching is always combined with research tasks.
And what challenges will be there and where?
The challenges for the students. The challenges for the students, I think, is the most important thing at last is help them develop themselves. I think this is the most important part, because the students here, when they go to a master course, they are all educated already. There is no student who miss knowledge because they have knowledge, otherwise they would not have finished their bachelor. So they bring talent, and it's up to us bring the talent out, just to strengthen them and to make them understand where their talent is. And I think this is maybe the biggest challenge in education.
What specific challenges do you see for the students when they're facing in the terms of monument preservation in the field of architecture and cultural heritage?
If I think about this, it always links to actual tasks of the society. Architects and also people in monumental preservation have to react on that, what is going on in the society. And when we look on the society, we have nowadays very different view even. I'm very sure that the corona pandemic will have a long tail. That means that people, for example, are now used to buy by internet. They are not going to a shop. They are scared from each other. Some don't like to meet people. They take distance from people. That means that our urban life surely will have changes. There are not so many people buy products, shops will be less, and so on. So the urban life will change, and we in architecture have to react. For monuments, this is very horrible, because we have a lot of important monuments in the center of the cities, and when the centers get more empty, people don't go there, then we have really a problem to make buildings alive. So that this has it has a lot of effects depend on each other. And one of the important things, this is nearly like I would say the main task of the 21st century are the tasks which have to do with environmental protection. This is in architecture important. This is also in monumental preservation important, because there very often we need compromises. We cannot build all the modern standards in an old house without damaging it. So there we have to teach how to do compromises. I think this is a big basket in education, what we have to teach in the moment.
After you gave us an insight into your teaching, can you give us an insight into your research topics that you are doing in the moment?
Research topics are always also combined with education. I will give you one example what makes it a little bit more easy to understand what I mean with this. Here in Dessau, we do not only have the Bauhaus heritage, we also have more heritages. One is a very important one, the Dessau-Wörlitz Garden Realm. And the Dessau-Wörlitz Garden Realm is the first English garden on the continent, which was founded at the end of the 18th century. And this garden has something specific, because when it was developed, they had no idea at last, and also the English planners who were earlier had no idea. And what they were understanding, that's a very interesting point, that the painters were one step earlier. The painters painted beautiful landscapes, but not gardens. This is very funny. Normally you should think that a garden is beautiful and like to paint a garden, but they didn't paint gardens. They paint landscapes. They paint beautiful landscapes with mountains, bridges, rivers, trees. And then these architects understand that they can take the paintings and can make a garden like the paintings. And then the garden get very beautiful, get the English garden, which we know nowadays. But we have no research work about that. This is just a theory. We learn that, but we don't know how they did it. So we now this semester give the task that students take the pictures. They look for modern pictures, for example, from a modern painter, Degas or Picasso or whatever. And then they try to make a park from the pictures of Picasso. The first step is I translate the picture to the ground plan and try to catch the point, what is the beauty in this. Then the next is you have different stones, and then you see the problem. You have to link them together. Suddenly it gets really complicated. And that's a moment where you need books. You need to learn something. You need to read. And then students like to read because they enjoy their park, their pictures, their ideas, and then they are willing to read. And by this, you don't need to force them. They start to read. That is where teaching and research comes together. Practical projects would be also to mention. A project which is in a moment done here is that we look for one complicated construction in Halle where an innovative idea is done, and the government thinks that's critical. Government give a lot of money for it, and they like that someone guide it and give a report if this is really a good solution. That's one of the research projects in construction we have. And another project what is running is that I deal with the history of the economic of the Bauhaus, how they economically organize that. This is like a criminal story, very, very interesting.
How do students benefit and solve with these research projects?
Also for this, it's always easier to give an example. You have students in monumental preservation, you have to teach them that when they find documents in the archive, they are not only the winner of the knowledge, because documents in the archives can be completely fakes. Someone can completely lie. The most important lie in history is the foundation of Constantine, where a document was completely fake, and they even made several wars about this fake document. So you really can do with fake monuments change history. And students shall learn that this is possible. So I give them as a task document about one cemetery which Gropius planned, and there are different letters, and the students just look for the letters and find there are some things really don't fit together, and then they understand that they have to read archive material critical. It's not that you can take it one-to-one. You have to ask yourself why is writing, what is his idea and intention. And so you bring the research work you're just doing to the students, and even the students have sometimes better ideas than you had before. They bring you new ideas because they see the letter in a different way. So then it's really this ping-pong game between teaching and research. This is the last fun.
It's also mostly interested who is the interest.
Yes, that's very important. Exactly, because it's always a question why someone is writing, to whom he is writing, and what he like to tell. And this is can be completely different. And we find a document from 1500 something, and we think, oh, now I know something. You know, just the opinion of someone who like to give you the information for a reason. That's all what you know. And these are things what you can directly bring in the education program.
Now we are going back to this summer semester. It starts in the online mode. What are the challenges that you face with technique or communication?
I think everyone learned a lot. It's very interesting. People mostly learn what is important for them when they miss it. This is also something very specific. And I think everyone meet each other. This is something what is in our nature. Human beings are not created to stay 1.50 meters away from each other. They are created to touch each other, and this is the normal way of mankind. And now we are forced to do something totally unnatural, and people suffer that. And you can see that in the education program also a lot of information is not really given in the way as you like to give it. The so-called small cut information is missing. When you meet a student on the floor and he can ask a question, you answer, such things are missing. The other point is I don't like to see developments only negative. in reality we can learn from every catastrophe. You can take the hardest of history, that human beings every time learn something. They see the catastrophe and they develop concepts, and these concepts are worse, and they use this like a treasure and can solve next time other problems. And from this pandemic, I'm very sure that we will learn that we don't need to meet every time in person. We can use this online things, we can communicate by video, and I'm sure that we will save a lot of time and be more efficient by less traveling. This will be good for the economic, will be good for our time schedule. So I think all these things will have also positive effects. We should not only look on the negative, I think hopefully we should look also on the positive effects.
I found also conferences could be, or
yeah,
global meetings could be more efficient.
Absolutely. When you think about that, now we are used to it, and when you have, we are just discussing to make a new group of lectures where we invite international guests, and when the international guests don't need to fly, you make not such. It's also interesting, you learn that it's not good to have a lecture about 2 hours or 1 hour. It's even too much. When you make a shortcut, for example, 20 minutes, it's something what you also learn, and you invite an expert from Russia, from Brazil or whatever, and he gives you 20 minutes impact just on online. And you do this every month one time. This is surely a very worth thing, where we never thought about it, do it earlier, but now we have these ideas because we are just pushed in this situation.
After you gave such a deep insight in your job, what is your hobby to campaign this?
I think when you have to sit a lot at the table, when you are forced to work on a desk, then it is surely very good when in the spare time you do something in direction sport, just to move the bones and the flesh, that you don't get rotten on your seat. So I try to move as much as possible when I'm not forced to sit, and that means do kind of sport.
Okay, thank you very much for the interview.